There's two things that are running them into PPOs and getting them to overwork and not make what they are, getting burned out. And I help them with their confidence and their purpose. Hey, patients love their hygienist. Why? Because they talk with them. Well,
Yes.
you know what? They're going to love me now because I'm going to talk to them. There's a recipe that we use, if you will, to present treatment to people, to try to help them, to make them understand and show them how they can afford quality dentistry. It takes time to do, and it takes a professional to do. You have to learn to communicate and be comfortable with people. If we just got rid of PPOs, we would all have plenty of patients. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if you just slow it down and show people how they can afford to pay for it. Most people can afford $100, $200 a month for dental work. I find that the masses of people that are 45 and older, it's not uncommon to need $5,000 to $8,000 worth of work. So I did that all day long, and it was very easy to sell, and people were grateful that I did that.
Good day, everyone. This is Dr. David Phelps of the Freedom Founders Mastermind community and the Dentist Freedom Blueprint podcast. Today, we're going to have a really fun and I think a very interesting conversation with a gentleman in our industry, a doctor, practiced many years as I did, and really the learnings that he had during his evolution as a dentist, a practice owner, and so many things I believe are applicable to today, whether others want to believe them or not. I think it's always important that we listen to other opinions, other experiences. And these are real life experiences, not theoretical. This is actually someone who's actually done what he's done and figured some things out. So without further ado, I want to bring on our guest today, Dr. Ron Sheftor. Ron, how are you, sir? All right, yeah, big applause. Everybody up on your feet. Let's bring him in with a big applause.
Thank you.
So Ron, we had a time to catch up a few weeks ago. And I had, like a lot of things, I'm involved in the communities of dentistry just because, like you, it's like I love to see what's going on. If I can add any value somewhere, you do the same thing. And I picked up on some of your threads in this last year, and you've talked a lot about a model that really goes against the grain of the dental industry, and that is a no hygiene model. And you've taken a lot of flack, a lot of arrows in your back for coming out something that most people say, oh my gosh, that's heretical. I mean, dentistry, you must have a hygienist, you must be like allowing periodontal issues to occur. There's no way you can do that. Doctor, you can't scale teeth. You weren't trained to do that. And I get that side, but it's all what we've been taught to believe in life, and many things that aren't true. So that's what we're going to get into today. But before we do that, Ron, we got to get a little bit of background because not everybody's going to know who you are. And I think that's important to know how you came up kind of through the ranks. And really this model that you started to develop came out early because you were in school in your dental training. You were got your requirements done like a year early, and that allowed you to enter do some things that most of us in dental school didn't get to do. So you want to start there a little bit for us?
Sure, absolutely. So I finished a year early. They didn't know what to do with me. And they says, we're not graduating you. The state's giving us money. So, figure out what do you want to do? I always follow the money. So I go, well, there was no such thing as cosmetic dentistry, but I like making people's smiles look better, making the tissues healthier. And so they go, okay, well, you just go with a prosthodontist and do full mouth rehabs. So here we go. There was a clinic, a GPR clinic, an advanced, thing across the street, little cottage set up. And so they go, okay, we'll stick you in there. And there was only a couple of students at that time. It wasn't a real popular program. So there was plenty of room and plenty of time to work with a younger doctor like myself. So me and the prosthodontist worked on full mouth rehabilitations my whole senior year. And that was I had so much fun, but there was a hygienist there and there was an assistant there, and we worked at like a private office. And checking people in between doing full mouth rehabs, like I thought this was the craziest thing ever invented. I go, it's taken all my concentration. I'm pooping my pants doing this stuff, right? I mean, why would I want to get interrupted to go do a minute hygiene check, which I wasn't even focused on? And I knew I was going to miss dentistry because of it, because I wanted to get back to what I was doing.
Of course.
So the prosthodontist says, well, truthfully, in my office, I really don't do many of those hygiene checks either. So when I got out of school, it just seemed logical. Why don't I just treat one patient at a time? And even on the hygiene checks, a dental assistant can help us with that. They could polish, they could do the sealants, they could do home instructions. There's so much that they can do too. I just have to be in part, on the diagnosing side. And so I could use an ultrasonic or a sonic cleaner. I like sonic because I think it's stronger, and take pictures along the way. I'd had an intraoral camera very early in my career when they first came out. So I would take pictures. People love pictures. And, I'd show them pictures, diagnose, and then send it off to, they'd accept the treatment. I'd find work. And then I'd send it off to the assistant. So I found always right from the beginning a ton of work to do. And I never did more than, maybe 4 cleanings a day. People say, oh, all I'm going to do is clean teeth. Well, if that's all you're doing, you got way too many patients.
Right.
There are plenty of patients for us. It's just some of them are hogging it. They think they need 3,000 patients. No, you don't. I never had, this is going to blow people away. I never had over 320 patients in my practice. And I always did 1 million, 1.2 million, and brought home half. And dentists are going to think I'm lying about it, but it is what it is. I've converted so many dentists now since I've retired in the last 3 years over to this system. Every one of the doctors is finding more work. They're much happier. They're slowing their pace down, and they're making more money. What?
You sent me actually sent me a video of one of the doctors that you have been working with. I think just in this last year, maybe this year alone. And she was formerly a hygienist.
Yeah.
Became a dentist, and she said, I'm working with Dr. Shefdor, and boy, it sounds like I'm really going against my culture of hygiene. Obviously, any dentist and certainly hygienists, we care the foundation, and so much disease can be picked up there. But to your point, we're trained to run and gun, to have the skates on, trying to keep up with PPO dentistry and volume, and you think about if you're going in for surgery, if you or I or anybody listening is going in for just maybe some arthroscopic knee surgery, or let alone maybe some cardiac surgery. Do we want to think the doctor is while we're anesthetized, doctors maybe jumping in and out of our case 3 or 4 times? I mean, how would we feel about that? So yeah, to your point, why do we do that in dentistry? Well, we built this model that says that's what we're supposed to do. Listen, I ran that model, so I'm saying I felt the same angst. And I think today, more so than ever, but even wherever we started in dentistry, that what you've created, what you have found and delivered and shown the results, it just makes sense. And we're not demeaning hygienists here. We are not at all saying that we don't appreciate what great hygienists do in certain models. But I would just say, to your point, the fact that we think that hygiene becomes a nuisance, when that's where rapport, connection, the ability to actually find disease and spend some time, because we're trying to get in and out, because we got to get back to the big case, right? And it's so counterintuitive. What's the biggest, besides mindset, it's probably the biggest one, when people come to you and say, Ron, I've been listening to you, I've been watching your blog posts, and I know a lot of people are just stabbing you in the back and saying you're crazy, man, but you know what, there's something in your message just resonates. What are the biggest obstacles or gaps in helping a doc go from a current model, which I'm sure a lot of them are just on roller skates, to your model? That seems like a big bridge to cross, especially if you've got a lot of debt and you built up a big mini chair operatory. How do you make that conversion? I'm curious.
It's pretty easy.
Okay.
And it took a while to figure it out, right? It's Michael Jordan made basketball look easy too, right? It just only took him, 20 years to.
Right.
In dentistry's like that too. At the end of your career, you're going, geez, I'm pretty good, but it took you 30 years to get there, right? So what I found working with dentists is there's 2 things that are running them into PPOs and getting them to overwork and not make what they are, getting burned out. 2 things that we focus on, and I help them with their confidence and their purpose. And we work on that and getting their heart straight first. Did you go into dentistry and have this opportunity? Did God supply this opportunity for you to be able to jump through, see how many patients you could see and drill as many teeth as you can during the day? For what? For 30 or 40 years of doing that? No, I'm here to be happy. And what makes me happy is interacting with the patient, getting to know the people that I care about. They're not my next paycheck. I'm there actually to help them. When I do that, my fees are already set that no matter what I do, I'm going to make a good living. So I don't have to worry about the money ever. And that's the problem. They're setting their fees so low because the insurance company is setting their fees that they have to worry about the money. I never did. I never had to. And I don't care if I was doing a cleaning, I was making at least $600 an hour with a 50% overhead. If you run those numbers, that's a $480,000 take-home income pace. Why wouldn't you do a recare visit?
Well, and also because you didn't run at a frenetic pace.
No.
You can do same day dentistry, which is ideal for everybody, right? I mean, and so many docs, they might diagnose something in that quick hygiene check, but no place to put them on the schedule. And how often do those patients just drift off and back at the next recare and nothing happened in between? So he lost opportunity, lost prevention. It's just the whole thing is twisted.
It is just twisted, and I just don't understand how we got into this. But it's getting worse and worse and worse, and it seems like, well, there's no other way. So I just said bullshit on everything. I said, there's always another way. And the way is going to be to make me happy and to make me satisfied, because we're only here for a few years, right? This is a short life.
Yeah.
And what are you going to be miserable for 30 years? I'm going to go through 8 years worth of school to be miserable. I could have stayed in the factory in Chicago Heights. I mean, that's what all my friends did. And no, I said, I'm getting out of this. I'm not going to be miserable the rest of my life. Dentistry is the best profession. It was so good to me and my family. In my opinion, there's no other profession left that could give you the freedom and the happiness that dentistry can if you do the correct business model that's good for you. Now, I'm not saying you have to work without a hygienist, but if you do have a hygienist, maybe we can modify that. I'm working with some dentists where we're keeping the hygienist busy doing productive things, not recare. The doctor and the assistant's doing the recare because that's where things are found. That's where rapport is built. Hey, patients love their hygienist. Why? Because they talk with them. Well,
Yes.
you know what? They're going to love me now because I'm going to talk to them. Let the hygienist be very, very productive. Well, if you're talking, you're not making money. Really? That makes no sense in the world, because you have to make people to understand what you're doing. There's a recipe that we use, if you will, to present treatment to people, to try to help them, to make them understand and show them how they can afford quality dentistry. It takes time to do, and it takes a professional to do. Now, a doctor has to learn that. If you want to be an out-of-network doctor, you have to learn to communicate and be comfortable with people, and even talk about money. And I go through that with the doctors, how to get comfortable talking about money. And most of the doctors have trouble with money themselves, and that's what the problem is. So I got to get them through that, because somebody at our skill level and that many years of school of what we know is going to be costly. I don't care where you go, right? It's just not us. You don't have to feel guilty about charging patients. Everything's expensive if you want our skill level. So you get
that same limiting belief about what I do is costly. Well, if that's the doctor's attitude, then it's also going to be the staff's attitude, and the whole thing becomes a self-sabotage model, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so you've got back to purpose. And I know we could spend a lot of time right there in that one, and culture and having the right team. But neat thing is, you didn't have to have a big team. We know that all problems multiply when you add more people to whatever you're doing. The big model, the big practice is, you got to hire an HR office manager, and it's still just, it's not impossible, but it's difficult. And your model was, I think, when you and your wife, you talked about the fact that your wife was very adamant, in helping you make the decision to make this change when you create a list of questions. And it probably comes back to confidence, purpose, the same thing you're teaching now. And then you said, well, basically we changed the model, and I had one person up front. I had two in the back to help me assist. That was the extent of my big team. And I didn't need to have all these auxiliary people that people come and have these big, massive morning huddles in the morning, and they're looking at, 10 rows of operatory chair time. And they're well, Mrs. Jones, get her to get that crown. And it's just like, oh, I mean, right? I mean, it's nuts.
Why would somebody put themselves through that? And that goes with the confidence, because they're not confident enough, and I don't mean arrogant. There's no room for arrogance, but you got to be confident in your abilities and know that you're delivering something really good for this patient, and you're skillful to do it if you take your time. Why would you put yourself through that when you don't have to?
Yeah.
Just help another human being and make your fees so you do make a good living, the living that you want, and show the patient how they can afford it. Forget care credit and all those. They charge a doctor too much. They reject things. There's better alternatives today. Supplies are getting crazy. I show doctors how to save on supplies. There's ways to cut your overhead without affecting quality at all. Doctors waste so much time. They got these big 5 to 8 hours. You can't believe how many doctors call me, and they've got maybe a few hundred patients, and they got 6, 7 operatories paying $8,000 a month. It's like, well, there you go. There's $6,000 or $5,000 a month wasted right there. I mean, doctors. I was with a doctor yesterday. I found $100,000 for him. He's just wasting money. He didn't even realize it. I mean, put that in your retirement account and do that for 15 years. Right. Game over.
That's right. That's right. Your wife is an accountant. She does numbers. I mean, that's her background. So she obviously was a help to you when you were making these decisions and really helped mold you. I want to go back though to the confidence factor. Now, you were very propitious in your dental training. You finished all your requirements with a year left over. You were provided this great opportunity, and what a great opportunity. You talked to me about, how you this prosthodontist would grab your hand and go, "We're prepping 10 teeth," and you're like, "We're doing what?" But it's like anything, you just got to do it. So let's face it. You came out. I mean, it was like a GPR for you. You came out of this great opportunity. You took it. You deserved it. And you came out with a lot of confidence. I mean, who wouldn't if you'd spent a year without prosthodontist? So you came out with a level of confidence. For most docs who don't get that, should they be going to a GPR? Where do they get the confidence to do what they do? Because a big part, you've already said it, is communication, relationship building with people, but also I got to have the skills. And if I just come out with my 4 years in dental school, I don't really have those skills to really. So now I'm thinking, well, I just got to turn and burn and do one tooth dentistry until someday maybe I'll take enough CE. But in the meantime, I've gotten bogged down because I'm taking managed care dentistry because I got to fill the chairs and pay off the student loan debt. So how do I, is this typical young doc? How do you help them start out, Ron?
I've gotten through a few of them now with that. And what we do is we do baby steps. So even when you get out of school, well, hopefully, when you get out of school, you know how to do a crown, you know how to do a filling, you know how to do a denture, you know how to scale a tooth. We had to do that with the boards. You know how to clean someone's teeth, right? You know the basic dentistry that most people need. So all I do is work with them and I go, for the next 6 months, we're going to get really good at the stuff that you already know, right? After 6 months, we're going to start to diagnose a little bit more and maybe do quadrant dentistry, not one tooth dentistry and be a one tooth wonder. Then we'll move to half mouth dentistry. If I can get them to do half mouth dentistry where the patient's there in 1 to 3 hours, holy cow. And they're not getting interrupted at all. I mean, they're making $1,000 an hour or more doing that type of stuff. And if you want to then say, okay, let me take some implant training and just start with 1 or 2 a month, right? Nothing huge, and start working that up. It's going to take them a few years to bring home $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. But even a dentist that's coming out of school has the skills to come home with $250,000. That's a good start. It's not, they're not getting rich, but it's enough to pay off their loans, survive, pay their taxes, and it's a good solid base to go from. And every year they're going to see an increase of being a little bit faster. They're going to time things and learn how to become faster. There's a great series of short videos to teach doctors how to get faster. They have people, it's not mine. It's another doctor that's been around for 40 years. Tom Hughes. I don't know if you know him now. He comes out with a wonderful, he has done, it's just a gift for dentistry.
And that's Tom Hughes.
Tom Hughes.
Okay.
You got to look him up. Masters and mentors.
Okay.
I'm telling you, this doctor with his own money made these videos and spent a lot of money on this and a lot of time and giving, what a gift he gave dentistry to show us how to do things better and faster. I don't know anybody else that's done that, and nobody even knows about this. And it's just a shame. You just go there and check him out and just talk to him. You'll have a hell of a good conversation with him. He's such a nice man, such a giving man, and he's given us such a gift. I got him now to get some CE on it because he didn't have CE, so his name was a CE. He priced it. It's, I don't know, $1,000 for 9 CEs or something. It isn't much money at all.
Right.
But boy, what he gives you, he'll save dentists an hour a day. So we get the younger dentists to look at these videos and say, look, we don't have to do this tomorrow, just step by step. Every week, we're going to get a little stronger.
Right.
And at the end of the year, they're faster and we get them to do more procedures and move up. And that's how they become really good.
Yeah, it's the compound effect. Little steps at a time builds to the goal. Ron, with your experience, not only for yourself, but also working with dentists, around the country, whether it's urban, suburban, rural, would you say that, is it possible for a dentist to have the kind of model you're talking about and be fee for service as you've been in any location, or are there any geographical considerations that would make it more difficult or easier to do the model that you represent?
Well, I was in a very competitive area in a western suburb of Chicago. Very, very competitive. There was, oh my goodness, 20 dentists within a very short walking distance of me. And I did really, really well there, but all of them decided to run to the bottom and I did the opposite. Mm-hmm. So, my clientele was looking for something else. They weren't rich. I mean, there was rich areas around me. But I showed them how to have quality care. They wanted doctor time. They wanted the doctor to explain it and make them understand choices, ask questions. And then I basically showed them how they can afford it. And we do things even in stages, right? So in a competitive area, you have to do that. Now I'm finding in semi-rural and rural areas, it's much easier to do this, much easier. You'll be busy from day one because the next closest doctor that's any good, that's good, is maybe an hour away. People ain't going to go an hour away, right? So even if your fees are a little bit higher, their time and the gas and everything that they got to go, to the doctor an hour away, they're not going to go to most of the time. There's no reason for a doctor to be in all these network plans if you're in a semi-rural or rural area. Why? Where are they going to go? Just have the best office, looks good, smells good, dentistry that doesn't hurt and that's going to last, and you're nice to them. You take your time with them. If you do that, you could be successful anywhere. It's just a little bit easier in the rural and semi-rural areas.
So because most of the models today that are taught, or at least dentists feel compelled to take on, requires an influx of a lot of new patients, and if you haven't, I don't know, I hear numbers like you got to have X number of new patients per doctor. And, I think you said your base was about 325. So you didn't need some big marketing campaigns, throw a bunch of dollars out there to campaign. I assume then that the predominant source of new patients was internal referrals.
You would think so. It used to be. Okay. Today, things are digital. People are not listening to their neighbors of who's the dentist. They're just going online. They're seeing your reviews and more. Starting 6 years ago is the first time in my career that I was getting more new patients digitally than I was from word of mouth. Word of mouth, I saw go down, digital go up. So marketing today is a lot different. So my marketer kept me out of all network plans the last 6 years. Thank goodness.
So then you had to have a digital presence, like you have a website and Google reviews.
Yes, and new patients. Okay, so new patients in a competitive area like Chicago, for me, I needed between 15 and 20 new patients a month. Now, if you talk to most PPOs, they need double that.
Yeah.
Right? They're 40, 50, 60.
Yes.
And trying to get those patients, well, the only way, in my opinion, they're going to come in isn't because you're the best doctor in the town. It's because you're the cheapest. Right? I mean, why else are they flocking to your office? Right? I need dental work done. Well, I don't have much money, or I don't want to pay much money because I don't see much value there because the doctors never trained them on what the value is. So, they're going to flock to offices like that. Well, I was the most expensive in the area. So yeah, they're not going to flock to me. So I didn't want to handle more than 15 or 20 patients because I really couldn't meet with them, interview them,
Right.
find out what was important. I mean, it was just too much. So it's a much slower pace. You don't need a lot of patients. If we just got rid of PPOs, we would all have plenty of patients. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if you just slow it down and show people how they can afford to pay for it, most people can afford $100, $200 a month for dental work, right? Most people at work. So if you do 100 or 200 a month, they have some sort of dental insurance. Let's say it's 1,000. Well, okay, let's say 150 a month they can afford. It's 1,800 plus the 1,000. That's 2,800, and do half of it this year, half of it next year. You're selling a $5,000-$6,000 treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of work to get done,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the masses, I find that the masses of people that are 45 and older, it's not uncommon to need $5,000 to $8,000 worth of work.
Right.
So I did that all day long, and it was very easy to sell. I never had to sell, just explain it to them. And people were grateful that I did that because the last guy said, well, it was X amount of dollars, and then left, or wouldn't talk about the money. And, it was real easy.
Yeah, they want someone. Well, again, you're developing rapport and you're being transparent with your patients. And when you don't feel like you need to force a treatment plan on somebody, when the validation there that I'm here to help, but we're not trying to oversell you on a bunch of stuff you don't need. I mean, that comes across when you spend the time with people. If you're in and out in the quick hygiene check and you leave it to, again, capable and trained assistants, I get it, but there's just something about the doc was here and he saw me for 2 minutes and now they gave me this treatment plan that's this long, and I'm missing some connection here. I mean, it's like, I'm gonna be reticent too. I'm just not, maybe I liked you, but I only saw you for 2 minutes, and hey, I'm not quite bought in yet. Don't know you well enough, right? And that's where so much is lost, right? As you say, you're just leaving so much on the table where you could be helping people. I got to ask you this. Obviously, you practiced many years, and you certainly went through a lot of the normal business cycles.
Yeah.
We're in a cycle right now. People, we're talking about, the fight against inflation, potentially, into a recession. So talk to us a little bit about recessions that you went through in the past, and how did that affect your practice model, if at all?
It did.
Okay.
Wonderful thing. It's not 37 years, right? So
Yep.
We were through a few cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And having this model, having a low overhead, you're not going to see what I saw in my practice during the really tough years. Yeah, there were more cancellations. There's more people that kind of held things off. But really, at the end of the year, my income wasn't affected that much. Obviously, the office didn't grow,
Mm-hmm.
right? But so what? I really didn't want it to grow that much, right? It didn't. It really is almost recession-proof, right? And I know people are calling bullshit on that, but I got the numbers to back it up. Back in 2007 or 2008, 2009, when all the crap was going on, I'll bet my income didn't fluctuate more than 5%. But it did slow down a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it just, when the overhead isn't that high, when my rent isn't that high, I don't have a bunch of employees.
You can absorb it.
It's not really all that bad. So
Yeah.
I got to drink an extra cup of coffee. I really kind of enjoyed it, to tell you the truth.
Well, and after 37 years of practice, not all, but I'd say a great percentage of our colleagues, they're bent over, they got neck problems, they got carpal tunnel. I mean, we didn't even talk about that today, but there's longevity of practice. Dentistry, as physically demanding as it is, mentally
Yeah.
demanding, and the physical toll that it takes when you're trying to run the conventional model out there today. That's another thing that young docs won't appreciate until a little bit further down the line when they can't continue that model.
Well, I'm always saying this to all dentists, and it's like I'm hearing crickets. It's like they've got this model like this is Walmart, like we're selling widgets. That's great to sell 1,000 widgets, but in a service business, you don't want to see masses, right? I mean, maybe the guy that owns it does, the corporate does, but the guy that's actually doing the work, and right now, dentists still own practices. The majority of practices are owned by individual dentists still. Most of us, why would you want to see masses? It's too hard. You're going to wear yourself out. I don't have any physical problems, none. And I really think a good part of that is, one, not seeing a high volume. Number two, being able to see a few recare patients during the day. It was a needed break. It was a rest from the hard dentistry that we do. And it was fun. You got to have some fun during the day. If you don't like people, then sit behind the computer. What the hell did you get into dentistry for if you don't like people? I had a conversation. There's these Facebook gurus on there that they can't even stand people. And, they're bragging how they got this big PPO practice. They never talk to patients. They know how to wiggle insurance companies for every dime that they're worth. And I mean, that's great to go down that route, but why did you go into dentistry if you don't like talking with people and you don't care about them and you're not there really to want to help them? The hell do you get it? It just confuses me. Most of us got into this because we enjoy helping people.
Yeah, no, totally get it. Well, Ron, lots of wisdom in a short period of time. What's the best way for people to connect, find you, learn more about what you're doing, and what basis are you doing that today? I mean, I really get from you that, as you said, you love helping people. You help patients for many, many years. Like me, I like, if there's people who want to listen to a different way of doing things, how do people connect with you, and what basis do you work with potential?
I work with about 4 or 5 offices at a time.
Okay.
That's all I want to work with. I'm retired, right? I'm a retired guy and I'm still doing this about 18 hours a week. So I do block off about 18 hours a week to help people. Most of it's for free. Most of it, in fact, I had 2 consults with doctors today, getting them on the right path. I gave them a lot of really good advice on how to look at this. And they were very grateful about looking at things different because nobody's talking about this model. And so I'll help you as much as I can for free. But if doctors want me to help them for a few months, there's no contracts or anything. You fire me anytime you want. But within 2 to 3 months, I could get any doctor everything they need to do this model for the rest of their career. So you don't sign up with this consultations or guys that coach you that have never actually been successful being a dentist. That drives me nuts. Yeah. They're charging these dentists $50,000 to $150,000. They're businessmen, never did general dentistry. There's periodontists telling general dentists how they should practice and what's good for them. There's something about general dentistry when you do it that changes you. And I just had this conversation with 2 other doctors this last week. That it's hard. It's all consuming, and it can change you. And you have to know to look out for those changes and not go down this dark hole. General dentistry can do that, and I don't know why it can do that. So when you start working too much, seeing too many patients, doing too big of numbers, I'm telling you, you're going to get goofy and you're going to get hurt and you're going to go down a rabbit hole that you ain't going to like very much. I just know it. So I wanted to look up Tom's thing too.
Okay.
If you type in $300, Tom will give you $300 off. Just use that code. What Tom used, but go there. It's mentors and masters. And I think he's got a couple of samples that you could even look at some of these videos. But if you're a younger doctor, you don't want to fly to CE and pay a lot of money for CE, but you really want to learn something that's really valuable, this would be a great place to start. And it's just not a lot of money.
Okay, so the code is to type in the number or the letters $300.
$300, just the numbers, $300.
Okay.
Now, people can get a hold of me by going to pharmaden.net. That's PHARMADEN.net. It's a nutraceutical company. Basically, it's a supplement company. I learned by doing a lot of perio that a lot of my patients were nutritionally deficient. We did a lot of research and developed a very high absorbing, high quality nutrient that was part of the perio issues. If you just ask people how they eat, their eating habits are awful most of the time.
Mhm.
And then we went to Loma Linda, did a double-blind study, and it proved it reduced pocket depth, bleeding, and plaque. So you can go there to Loma Linda study, and it was published in Compendium, peer-reviewed. So that's that site. If you go there, it's not a mistake. It's
Okay.
go
All
there,
right.
just look at the calendar, and you could schedule with me.
Great. All right. Well, Ron Sheftor, we really appreciate the time. I enjoy the conversation. I think you're very authentic, and I think a lot of docs would do well to at least open their eyes and ears to a different way of doing things, particularly before they get too far down that rabbit hole, as you said, and then they lose all the joy and the vision for why they got in dentistry in the first place, and that's the real tragedy. No one's served in that case. No one's served.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, sir. Talk to you again soon.
Okay.
If you enjoyed watching or learning from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you have a question about any of my content or this specific video, just please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay focused on your freedom. I'll see you next time.